The rain in Crestwood didn't just fall, it felt like it was trying to wash away the sins of the wealthy. Anna knelt on the cold marble floor of the grand foyer, her knees aching against the stone. To anyone passing by the towering iron gates of the Blackwood estate, this house was a dream. To Anna, it was a gilded cage, where she was the only one doing the bars. She moved her cloth in steady, rhythmic circles. Every Tuesday, she polished the same 300 square feet of Italian marble because her mother-in-law, Evelyn, claimed she could see the ghosts of poverty in the reflection if it wasn't scrubbed daily. Anna didn't complain. She had been married to Marcus for 2 years, and in that time, she had learned that silence was her only shield. She remembered what her mother told her on her deathbed. Anna, the world is full of people who love gold more than souls. Find someone who sees you, not what you own. Anna thought Marcus was that person, but as she looked up at the crystal chandelier, she realized the light wasn't reaching the corners of her marriage anymore. Evelyn Sterling didn't just walk, she marched, her designer heels clicking like a countdown clock. She stood over Anna, the scent of expensive lilies and condescension trailing behind her. "You missed a spot near the pedestal, Anna," Evelyn said, her voice like a sharpening blade. "But I suppose I shouldn't expect much. You can take the girl out of the charity ward, but you can't take the cheapness out of her soul. My son brought you here out of pity, you know. He saw a broken bird and thought he'd give it a cage, but even birds have to sing for their supper." Anna didn't look up. She knew if she did, Evelyn would see the fire in her eyes, a fire that didn't belong to a charity case. Anna knew something Evelyn didn't. She knew that the deed to this very mansion was tucked inside an old, battered Bible in her nightstand. She knew that Blackwood wasn't just a name on the gate. It was her mother's maiden name, but she had promised to live simply, to test the man she loved, and Marcus was failing the test. The tension snapped on a Thursday afternoon. Marcus had been distant, his eyes always glued to his phone, talking about investments and expanding the family legacy. He didn't notice the bruises on Anna's hands from the lie. He didn't notice that his mother had moved Anna's belongings into the damp, windowless basement room. When Evelyn found the deed while snooping through Anna's things, she didn't see a legal document. She saw an insult. She stormed into the kitchen, throwing the yellowed paper into the sink where Anna was washing dishes. "You're a liar and a thief. You forged a document to try and steal this house? To claim you're a Blackwood? Marcus, look at this. Your wife is trying to con us out of our own home." Marcus didn't even look at the signature. He looked at his mother's rage and then at Anna's wet, soapy hands. The cowardice in his eyes was the loudest sound in the room. "Anna," he whispered, "I think it's time you leave. My mother is right. You don't belong in a place like this. You're making us look like fools." They didn't even let her pack. Evelyn tossed a single suitcase, the cheap plastic one Anna had arrived with, into the mud of the driveway. The heavy oak doors, carved with lions that seemed to mock her, slammed shut with a finality that shook the ground. Anna stood in the rain, looking up at the house. Her house. Her mother had bought this estate 20 years ago as a refuge, a place where they could one day be safe from the prying eyes of the corporate world. And now she was being kicked out of it by people who were drinking her wine and sleeping in her rooms. But as the cold water soaked through her thin sweater, Anna didn't cry. She felt a strange, cold clarity. The test was over. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, high-tech key card that had been hidden in the lining of her coat. It didn't look like much, but it was the master key to the Blackwood Empire. 3 days later, the sun was shining, and Evelyn was hosting a garden party. She was telling her friends how she had finally cleansed the house of the servant wife. The party was interrupted by the sound of sirens, not police, but private security. 4 black SUVs pulled onto the lawn, ruining the perfectly manicured grass. A man in a sharp gray suit stepped out, followed by a woman whose presence seemed to command the air to go still. It was Anna, but the girl in the rags was gone. She wore a suit that cost more than Marcus's car. Her hair was pulled back, revealing a face that looked exactly like the portrait of Sophia Blackwood hanging in the closed-off West Wing. "Who do you think you are?" Evelyn shrieked, clutching her pearls. "I called the police on you. You're a trespasser." The man in the suit stepped forward. "Actually, Mrs. Sterling, you are. My name is Mr. Vance, Chief Legal Counsel for Blackwood Holdings. We've reviewed the forged deed you mentioned. It is quite real. In fact, it's the only real thing in this house." He handed a folder to Marcus, whose face went pale, turning a sickly shade of gray. "This is an immediate eviction notice. The owner of the estate, Miss Anna Blackwood, has decided to renovate, and the first things being removed are the pests." The epilogue ends with Evelyn and Marcus standing on the sidewalk, their expensive luggage being piled unceremoniously at their feet. The gates, the same gates that had felt like a prison, slowly began to close. Anna stood on the balcony, looking down at them. She didn't feel vengeful. She felt light. For the first time in years, the scent of wealth didn't smell like bleach. It smelled like fresh air. She turned her back on them, walking into the quiet, echoing halls of her home. The story ends not with a shout, but with the soft, satisfied click of a door finally being locked from the inside.